It's Rupert Hine here from Action Coach near Kinross, and I'm joined today by Aaron Swan of Neotec. Welcome, Aaron.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, well, great to see you. So tell us, who and what are Neotec?
Yeah, so Neotec is a manufacturing house. That's what my sales pitch says anyway. So what that really means is that we build, well, design and build other people's equipment. So it sort of spawned from my previous work as manufacturing manager, looking for people to subcon work out to when we couldn't keep up. And what I found was that it was quite hard to find somebody willing to take on trickier projects. So I found a niche and found a business partner and decided to take the plunge. But yeah, so what we do is we take people's concepts and help get them from an almost complete R&D idea into a manufacturable product, and then we build it. So electrical, mechanical, hydraulic equipment, and all over the place. So we've done robotics and aquaculture, renewable stuff, like anything and everything. We're not biased.
So, how do you get into setting up a manufacturing house that can
Mm.
cope with such a wide range of projects?
I think by accident, is to honest. So my background, I did apprenticeship at a small oil and gas company. So I'm up in Aberdeen, Scotland. So I did an apprenticeship with an oil and gas company, doing quite out there R&D stuff in a very niche bit of oil and gas. And then I went from that to a much larger oil and gas company doing subsea equipment. And I moved around a lot in that big company. And what I found was, it's quite interesting, is that all engineers like to think what they're working on is really unique. They all like to think what they do is really special and nobody else is doing it. When in actual fact, somebody else has done it 10 times in 45 different industries, and it's all very similar. Now, there's different principles and standards, and you've obviously got to get your head around that sort of thing. But fundamentally, a 24-volt power supply is a 24-volt power supply, and hydraulic pump isn't a hydraulic pump. It doesn't matter if it's moving oil and gas equipment around or if it's moving a robotic arm. It does. The principles are all the same. And I think when I got made redundant over COVID from that large company, and I ended up working as a manufacturing manager at a startup, a robotics startup, which was really interesting. And I realized then how transferable my skills were, because before that I was like, oh, I need to work back in oil and gas. Not that I had any love for it. It's just that's what there is in Aberdeen. I mean, I think something like 80% of companies in Aberdeen, especially manufacturing, are oil and gas or renewables. And I realized just how transferable that was and how easily things moved over. I suppose you look at like Dyson. He took that the Hoover technology from aerospace, and it's like and it just works fantastic as a Hoover. And I think there's much more of that than people think. So what I think actually dealing with different things only grows your learning to help other clients. So what you learn with one client, obviously not stealing designs, but the principles you can learn with one client can help another client. And so I think the more we do, the better we get at dealing with multiple industries. And I think what people like is there's a lot of no, see, we haven't avoided oil and gas, but we haven't pushed it very hard. So a lot of our clients aren't in Aberdeen. But I think what people get used to is paying a certain industry tax. Like, oh, well, if it's in oil and gas, it's going to cost this much. If it's in renewables, it'll cost this much. But if it's in automotive, it'll be much cheaper. And it's like, actually, we price it as we price it. And for some people, that's expensive. And some people, it's really cheap. And we keep it level. So I think it does. I think people like the idea of coming to us because we're honest and fair with pricing. Um, and yeah, we feel that we've had enough value to justify the fees that we charge. But yeah, there's definitely a lot more transferable from industry to industry, especially in engineering and technology, than anybody really talks about.
So that's hugely powerful, taking the specialist principles and adding that sort of almost generalist view or the
Hmm.
generalist engineering view to it. And yeah, I mean, you quite often see in business, people start off as specialists and they end up as the generalist,
Generalist. Yeah.
overseeing the business. But you've talked about oil and gas. You've talked about aerospace. You've talked about automotive. One of the differences between all of them is the different standards. So
Yes.
how do you keep track of the different quality control standards, or how do you manage your quality?
I think benefit of being in oil and gas most of my life is that we work to very high standards, and I haven't come across any industry yet where they're asking us to go above what oil and gas asks. So everything we do is to oil and gas standards, I feel like, which is yet to be too low for anybody. So yeah, it's like I remember there's a very boring electrical course called IPC 610, 620, and they talk about different classes of electrical assemblies, like one, two, and three. And like a level one is like a TV controller. So it's not impressive. The soldering is horrendous. And level three is like aerospace and oil and gas. And they say if you build everything to level three, then it's always going to be fine. So if you take those principles into everything, and I think that helps with the quality builds. We did some work for a electric car company based down in Glasgow. Um, so I went back to them on doing the quotes and valve cable. Well, you need this, 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 and this, and these, well checks and da-da. And they're like, oh no, no, we don't need them. I was like, okay, well, what do you need? He's like, oh, well, we only actually need these ones. I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. That's that's perfect. So I think if you aim for the highest quality and the highest standards, now there's some differential standards. DMV is a common one for lifting frames and stuff. As long as you're ensuring that you are ticking all the boxes, which we just work together. So any of my clients, we try and work very close to, in that we'll put a proposal together. They'll come and talk about it. We'll explain the standards we're going to work to. If they don't tick the boxes, they'll go, oh, actually, we use this standard, not this one. And as I say, most of the time, it's not a higher standard. It might just be a different standard. But we work with the clients to make sure that ties together.
And what have you found is the most effective thing that you've done to ensure that you and all of your team focus on that quality assurance?
I think it's a mentality, and I think that's really easy to say. We're a small team, deliberately so. And I think we've had nearly had a few big projects, and I've interviewed a lot of people to come on. And unfortunately, some projects haven't come through, so they haven't come on. But there's a small team as it is. But I'm very stringent on who I even interview, and when I get to interviews, it's a very casual chat, but I'm reading a lot into people. One of the things that I do think I'm good at reading people and their mentalities. And just one of these that you hear a lot. Oh, it's good enough. It's like, well, it's not good enough. It's like, so if one of my business partner, he's got a lot heavy background in quality control and that sort of stuff, and he does a lot of the formal documentation and that sort of thing, and he'll inspect things. I also inspect things and still do some building. But I think if from management down, you're stringent, and I'd rather it was late than on time and wrong, or on time and not quite good enough. And I'm honest with my clients with that. If I think, there's a due date on the Friday and it's Wednesday afternoon, and the guys could probably rush it through and get it there for Friday, but it might not be quite right. I'll see if the guys want to work the weekend and we can deliver it Monday morning. And clients don't care. Not if Friday afternoon and Monday morning are the same thing. But I'll know and I'll have confidence in that it's going to be okay. And I think if you really, there's Bob Keeler, who's a very famous businessman up here, talks about living your values. And I think if you really do see quality as the most important thing, and especially as a small company, all we have, because we don't do much design. That's true. We do a lot of designing to help our clients, but most of the engineering is done at their end, and we fine tune it for manufacturing. So all we have is the quality of the build and on time delivery. So if you lose one of them, then it's pointless. Your repeat customers disappear. If you can deliver a quality product, there's a company we work with a lot. I mean, they do a lot of our business through them. And the first product we had was they gave us the box and they pieced it together and it was fine. So I went back and built a couple, and I said, "Oh, I've got a few." I felt a bit sheepish. This was just as we started. I think we should change some things. I think you improve the quality of the build, you'll better time, it'll be more robust. I'm like, oh, that'd be great. And now we have a fantastic relationship where if they ask me to build anything, they just go, yeah, do whatever you think. That's fine. Whatever you think. I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. And it means that you can put something out that you've got confidence in, which is so important. If you deliver something and you're not sure, then how can you ever stand in front of your client and say, oh, I don't know why that failed, when you know exactly why it failed? So I think it's just it's crucial to be on top of the quality. And I think having the relationship with your clients that you can say something's a bad idea and go, I know you've had that before, but have you seen these issues? And they'll go, oh, actually, yeah, we have. I'm like, well, right, if we change this, then you'll stop seeing those issues. And nobody ever disagrees. They go, oh, okay, let's do that then. So I think working together and making sure that your clients can trust you, I think is the most important thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's often said that there's three things that clients look for in in a job. It's cost, quality, and time.
Yeah,
You can deliver two of those.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
and in your case, one of those you've just described is the non-negotiable around.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I tell you, yeah, you can have it fast and cheap, but it won't be good. Yeah,
That's
or yeah, that's it. But I think the cost, the big company was Acker Solutions, the cost of quality. It was a lot of investigations around the cost of quality and what that actually meant. I was involved in a lot of teams when I was there talking about that sort of stuff. And it was interesting there because it was such a huge multinational. You could see the knock-on effects. So something that looked like a £50 saving on a product actually cost the company like £400,000 because they bought 100 of them or 500 of them and they failed all over the world and you have to deploy offshore teams to deal with it. And so it's, the knock-on cost of quality is staggering. So I think I lucked out not lucked out. I did well from the career I had before starting this, that I've seen all that. Now I'm not dealing with big multinational oil and gas companies on a regular basis, but the principles are the same. It doesn't matter if it's going to, a robotics business or an automotive or whatever. If there's an issue and you saved a little bit of money to get it out cheaper or faster, then you're rarely winning in the long run, you know?
it's interesting because it's a bit like the difference between the German automotive approach
Yeah.
to quality, where you build the car and then it goes into the quality control department and they look for the faults. And if they find a fault, it goes back to the start of the process. Or the
Yeah.
Japanese approach of they find a fault, everyone stops, they cluster around, they fix it, and they don't do anything until it's fixed. And then so they stop the production line, but they know
Hmm.
by the time that things reach the end of the production line, it's right.
Yes.
And the cost saving is considerable, despite the disruption that you would expect
Yeah.
inherent in that. So, so you've got a huge focus on quality, um, but you're 4 years, 4.5 years into your journey as a business owner. You
Well, yeah, there's a story to that. So I'm not. So, so I started when I got paid off from the previous company. I started Neotec as a consultancy for fault finding. So it's because of my previous job, I was a reliability specialist in the UK doing fault investigation. So I did that for a little while, and then I got asked to go work at this robotics business, and I put it on the back burner. So this iteration of Neotech has only been running since last May. So yeah, so Neotech as a business has existed for 4.5 years, but it's only been operating as a manufacturing house for yeah, almost 2 years.
so so almost 2 years in. What have been what have been the business challenges?
Cash flow is always a big one, especially doing what we do, manufacturing. Payment terms. I think lots of companies don't appreciate how harsh that is for um, smaller companies. So you take a project that's worth £100,000, but you're going to need to spend 50 in materials. If that's a job's going to take a month and then the payment terms are 90 days, then you're floating the wages and the materials for 4 months. And there's very few small businesses that can sustain that sort of thing. So you push for the big jobs and you want the big jobs. Actually, floating the big jobs is hard. So that's tricky. One of the other big ones, I do most sales. So many hats and all that. So I do a lot of the sales, and it's amazing how people you speak to, like, oh, yes, brilliant. What you're doing sounds fantastic. But it takes time, and it takes so much more time than I think I ever gave it credit for. So the only sales experience I had before this was as a project engineer at that bigger company. And that was different because you're selling stuff to a client that is already buying stuff. So you're just adding things on. Oh, would you also like this? Would you also like this? That's a very different thing. And I don't think I appreciated at the start how different that was. So that versus calling a company that doesn't know who you are and explaining what you do, which is a relatively foreign concept to many, takes a minute. So we've got a few potential clients that hopefully some of the stuff will come in beginning of the year. But there's one of them we're speaking to, and if that comes in, we'll need to buy a bigger warehouse. It's huge, absolutely huge. But we've been speaking to them for just after we started, and they're really keen, really excited. But they're going through a heavy R&D round and an investment round, and the idea is they're going to build the prototypes, and then we'll take over the large scale manufacture. But that's been in the cards for 18 months. So it's slow. It's slower than I think I ever gave it credit for.
So what have you found has been the most effective strategies to see you through those two challenges?
I think the cash flow payment term thing is a lot of honesty. I think actually when I've been at the other side of the table at big companies, and I never thought of subcontractors cash flow in my entire life until I'm the subcontractor. So being honest and saying, we'd love the job, absolutely fantastic, but we're going to need 30% on PO, we're going to need 30% once materials are purchased, and then we can agree that. And I've never had anybody push back. They go, oh, no, yeah, that's okay. I'll speak to procurement. That'll be fine. And it's, but I remember the first time I had that conversation, I was like, they're going to pull the job. They're going to tell me to run away. And I'm like, actually, you've done all the hard part. You've convinced them you're capable. You've looked at the drawings. You've created a proposal. They like us as a company. They want to work with us. They don't care when the money comes out most of the time. Now, some companies are very stringent and it's 90 days or whatever. And I'm yet to have to walk away from one. But everybody, if you're honest with it, then most people are okay with it. And I think it's funny. I think it's easy to build it up in your own head, but they don't care. I mean, especially the person you're buying it from, who tends to be production managers, where operations manager, whoever it is. It's not until it filters down to the accountants that anybody minds. So that's definitely one is just being honest about that sort of thing. And I think on the timescale thing, what I'm learning, because you're always learning. If you stop learning, then it's no point. Is that you need to have an array of jobs. You need to have your big whales that are going to change the business forever and could take 2 years. And then you also need to have the bread and butter jobs that take the business over. So what I've definitely found is building business with existing customers is easier than finding new business. And we've spoken about it since the start. It's everybody we work with who like to think of as a partnership. There's nobody we've done work for that we've only done one job for. You do a job and then you want another job and another job. And it's, we've got one. We're just pretty much any time they need anything, they're like, "Oh, could you do this?" And it could be £500, but it doesn't take long. And you're like, "Yeah, it's fine." But 5 or 6 of them a month might pay your rent before you get to anything. So I think you can get caught up trying to chase these massive jobs, but you do need to do that because obviously that's going to change your business forever. But you also need to be getting your little jobs all the time. You know, a couple of grand here, 5 grand there, 20 grand here. It's like that's what's going to keep you going. And I think, you know, they're not big sexy POs, but they're constant, they're consistent all the time. And that's what you really need. Reoccurring revenue, I think, is the goal for any company, regardless of what you're doing. I think that's probably the message to go away with is look at both. You need to look at the big stuff, but you also need to focus on little stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's often said repeat business is profit. You have
Mhm.
to buy the client the first time, but repeat business
Absolutely.
comes maybe not for free, but it comes on the back of a great job delivered.
And that's it. And that comes back to the quality point. If you deliver a quality product the first time round, why would they go anywhere else? Why would they risk going somewhere else? You know?
So, so what are we going to see in the Neotec of 2030? Where are you going?
Spain, retire on the beach. But the no, the I think all going well, you know, touch wood. We'll continue to grow the team slowly. I've got no interest in hiring 50 people to do things well, unless one of these behemoth jobs comes in. But grow the team slowly with a core team that are as passionate about what we do as we are, and take on more and more interesting projects. Now, one of the bits I think when I started, I was like, well, we'll do the manufacturing, that'll be fine. But more and more, we're getting asked to do R&D as well, and I say not. I wouldn't call it pure R&D. It's not blue sky thinking. It's we've got this to work, and it's you know bits from Amazon and something else. Could you make this an industrial product? And I really enjoy that stuff. And I think that's quite a big market. There's people who've got it almost there, but they need it to be made industrial and built correctly. And I hope to take on more and more of that kind of business as well.
Fantastic. So when you look back over your journey in business, what's the one piece of advice you'd give to your 18-year-old self setting out?
Oh, don't know. Don't buy the Citroen Saxo. That was a terrible car. Shouldn't have bought that one. And then probably work as many jobs as you can. I know it's not a popular opinion. I suppose it depends on your goals. I think there's nothing wrong with getting a job and working at the same place for 40 years and retiring. But if you have any ambition to start your own business, the more areas, not necessarily different companies, but the more areas of a business you can work in, or the different companies you can work in, the more you'll understand the overall picture. And I think yeah, I think that would be my advice. Because I knew I wanted to start a business when I was 16, but didn't think it was possible. So I think in some level, I maybe thought about that. I had lots of jobs at the Acker, the big company I worked at, and I think all of them helped me with something. And I think you get that from anywhere. And I think if you actually move company to company, which I didn't do, you probably learn even more. And yeah, it's frowned upon, but more and more people do it now. You know, stay somewhere for 18 months, 2 years, and you learn infinitely more jumping around businesses and areas of a business. That's definitely what to stick to.
Powerful lesson. It's yeah, fantastic. Well, look, thank you for joining us, Aaron.
No problem at
That's
all.
it's a really helpful insight into the value of and how to go about creating quality production that keeps your clients coming back. So very best of luck for the future, and we'll look
No
forward to
problem.
seeing that manufacturing house become an ever greater feature in
Oh,
helping
fingers crossed.
commercialize their designs.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure.